It's an honor, Roberto, to have you here. I know you have a busy agenda. The fact that you took the time to stop by here with chambers, it's a great honor to all of us. So thank you. So I'm going to open for your remarks, and then the floor will be open to make questions. This is a small group, so hopefully it'll be a very nice and warming chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation to give me the privilege of exchanging ideas with such a high-level audience. Oh, it's a pleasure. I would say that I'm very happy with the first year at Petrobras, but our best days are still well ahead of us. We have very serious challenge to overcome in the future. Petrobras is still highly indebted, return on capital is still low, so we have a lot to do and to deliver to the investors and to the society.
Let me start with the first question. So you have achieved in short term a massive amount of sale of assets. How do you look at the next 2 years, 2 years? What's your priorities moving forward?
Well, it's very simple. We have a transformation agenda. Is underpinned by by 5 strategic pillars. 5 because it's simple to keep in mind 5 things. First, to increase return on capital employed. This will be led by the investment in assets in which we believe that we are the natural owners. In other words, is to focus on exploration and production in deep and ultra-deep waters. We gave an example of this. We spent $17 billion in the acquisition of blocks, of oil blocks, in the auctions that were conducted by the Brazilian government in October and November, particularly transfer rights auction, in which we acquired Búzios, is the largest offshore field in the world, is a real world-class asset. And on the other hand, we will continue to divest assets in which we are not the natural owners. We have a long list of divestitures. I was explaining to you that Brazil presents, at least for investment banks, a very good opportunity to do business there. And Petrobras has been contributing to that. There's many other deals to take place. And capital discipline, capital, both physical and human capital, are very scarce. So projects have to compete on their own merits. We have very rigorous criteria to approve projects. And the second pillar is to reduce the cost of capital. Oil is a very highly intensive capital industry, so we have to focus on the minimization of the cost of capital. So it includes deleveraging, transparency, and a very clear and intense relationship with global financial markets, with the global financial community. Third is a relentless search for low costs. We are pursuing that. It's not easy to do that in a state-owned company with a strong culture, with distortions that were created by long years of the unions leading the human resource department, but we are managing to cut costs. Every opportunity we are taking place. Here in New York, we had an office we shut down. In Houston, we have a large office, 6 floors, annual rent of annual leasing of cost of $5.8 million. Now a small office, half of a floor, and with annual leasing payment only $300,000. And we had, at the beginning of this year, we had 18 offices outside Brazil. These will be reduced to only 5. 8 were already closed, 5 are to come. And several other opportunities, just an example, and a small example, a low-hanging fruit. But we put in place several voluntary dismissal programs. Right now we have about 3,000 people already enlisted to leave the company. We should reduce the headcount. We work with 80,000 people. We are reducing it. The goal is by the end of the day, in about a couple of years, to have only 45,000 people working with Petrobras. And
that's sizable.
yeah, it's a sizable cost, sizable cut. And the third pillar, the fourth pillar is meritocracy. We put in place a real variable compensation program. It's not as aggressive as an investment bank, but it involves some meritocracy. This will be based on an EVA program. This year we implemented EVA, trained people, and this is going to work next year. EVA is very good because it's not just a method to compensate people. It's a system that empowers everyone in the organization to act like a small entrepreneur. You are responsible for this small business as an entrepreneur, and you have to make money. One of the problems that we face at Petrobras was the lack of accountability, and we are creating accountability, responsibility with accountability. And last but not least, it's about people, safety, and the environment. Petrobras already have a strong safety culture. This is worthwhile to recognize this. It's not created from day to night or night to day. Since the main responsible was Felipe Rashtu, in response to the accidents that took place in the early days of this century. And since then, Petrobras is very focused on safety, and our goal is to enhance this culture, train people, educate people, and because the lack of safety can create very serious problems to a company. We are decarbonizing the oil production. We are very good in carbon capture, to reinject CO2, avoiding emissions, reducing emissions, both in the upstream, the downstream, and the fuel of transition is natural gas. So we are going to produce much more natural gas than we produce currently, particularly after 2025, and we are investing in research and development in renewables.
You touched one point which I thought was quite interesting. I'd love to hear your experience. You touched on culture, because you're saying that you would like to change, or you're implementing a new meritocracy or compensation scheme, or you're trying to bring to the employees of Petrobras a new way to how to perform and be paid on that. Is that being well received, or how is the dialogue within the company with those measures that you
This is a very good point, because you can have the best strategy in the world, but by the end of the day, the most important thing is culture. We are involved in a program of cultural transformation. Petrobras has a strong culture with very good values like the ability to overcome challenges. Petrobras suffered a moral crisis due to the corruption scandals when a very small portion of its employees were criminals, but the 99.99% were made of honest women and men. They overcame this challenge. Technological challenge like the exploration of the pre-salt that required a very new technology. They are good in innovation. So, but there are other points of the culture that they have to forget about and acquire new competence. For instance, like according to the old beliefs, Petrobras should be the model of Brazil's economic development. I told them, if it's true, we have made a very poor job over the last 40 years because Brazilian economy almost stagnated in the long term. Our per capita GDP grew only at 0.7% per annum. It's a very slow growth for an emerging market economy. Brazil was left behind by several other economies in the world, the emerging market economies. So that's not true. We should look to Petrobras. If you do a good job at Petrobras, we are contributing to the development of Brazil as any other company in our country. So we changed this, and we established a very close dialogue with the employees. Petrobras was a very hierarchical company. I met some employees that said, I am here for the 20 or 30 years. I even never met a CEO. And let me take a selfie with you. Of course, you're free to. I like to talk to people. We are involved in a dialogue, with a very frank and transparent dialogue with employees, showing them that the rate of change globally has accelerated dramatically, and the interdependence among different business has increased also. Our main competitors are not other oil companies. They are the electrification of cars, things that are happening in other industry, not in our industry. So the models that were universally recognized as the best in the past, like vertical integration and so are being challenged. They are not unanimity anymore. Digital transformation is a revolution, and so we have to modernize this company, to change the mindset and to change the technology. Petrobras was well behind in terms of information technology, so cultural transformation, and it's being well received. I can tell you, of course, there are others that are against. That's not in unanimity. There are the ideological guys that are in favor of other things that sound very strange, but they will be left behind. This is to change. Every industry in the world is being challenged, has to be reinvented, from the taxi business to the financial industry. There are challenges to that people have never seen in the past. So the oil industry is not different, and we keep maintaining an outside view. It's not, well, we want to be better than last year. Our new strategic plan, we call it Mind the Gap, because we are looking to the outside. We want to reduce the gap we have in relation to other the major oil companies. Our benchmark is not what we have done in 2015 or 2017. It's the best oil companies in the world.
Roberto, great to see you in New York. I have a bit of a philosophical question for you. There's a very distinguished group of Brazilian economists, Angoni, Paulo Guedes, Joaquim Levy. You're part of this group, University of Chicago. Any particular lessons or thinking from your University of Chicago days that are particularly useful in your running Petrobras?
Yeah, they are very useful. We're just applying what we learned a long time ago. The Chileans have the Chicago boys. Brazil have the Chicago olds. We are not boys anymore. But we are applying what we learned there. Free to choose. We are pro-market. That's it. There's nothing different. No deviation. Definitely no deviations. And of course, there are constraints. The privatization of Petrobras is not on the table. Our goal is to transform Petrobras to a quasi-private sector company, very efficient one, focused, low cost. In 2022, Petrobras will be a different company. It will be an oil and gas exploration and production company with 5 refineries concentrated in deep and ultra deep waters, geographically located in 3 states, Espírito Santo, Rio de Janeiro, and São Paulo. And just that very focused company with much less cost, more efficient, more flexible, and then we have to decide another strategy. Perhaps if you can go global or invest in other things, but for the time being, the goal is to reach that position in a couple of years.
So, thank you. The last bidding round for E&P areas in Brazil was successful, but maybe not as successful as the government was expecting or the market was expecting. What do you see in terms of next steps to promote more investments in E&P production in Brazil? And what are the lessons learned from the last bidding round? I know this question doesn't relate necessarily to Petrobras, but I would welcome your views on the topic.
Was always have been in favor of restructuring and simplification of the regulatory framework for the oil industry in Brazil. It's very, very complex. You have local content increases costs. This is better than it was a couple of years ago, but it's still protectionism. It still protect inefficient producers. This is good for not only for the oil industry, for Brazil as a whole. Brazil is a very closed economy. It's one of the most closed economies of trade in the world. It's better only than Nigeria and Sudan, according to the World Bank. That sounds very strange. Second, we have currently 3 exploratory regimes in Brazil. Concession, which is good, but we have the transfer rights, the so-called cessão onerosa, that Brazil is unique in that kind of regime, and production sharing contracts. And there is a strange figure, the state-owned company called PPSA. PPSA decides about your development program and decides about what is acceptable as a cost. So it has a very important influence on the return of your project. Imagine you are going to create a business of producing paper, and then you develop a program, a production program. It has approved by some state-owned company. It will define your investments, what you are going to do in the next few years, and when you are going to make take your accounts, you have to approve with this state-owned company what's acceptable as cost is not. In Brazil, in order to grow, to really enter into the road to prosperity, has to simplify. And the government is making several efforts to reduce bureaucracy, starting with the economic freedom law, and several other things are being done in order to create conditions for Brazil to increase, for the Brazilian economy to increase productivity. Productivity growth is key to economic development, and so we have to focus on that.
Recent oil spill in Brazil surprised all of us, not actually because of the oil spill, but because we could not identify the source. What are the expectations of your engineers, your scientists in establishing the source of this kind of problem and solving or to avoid in the future this kind of accident?
Well, our role was to identify, in two dimensions. First, to identify the type of oil that was reaching the Brazilian beaches, and we were very clear. According to all samples that were collected, the oil came from 3 Venezuelan oil fields. Very well identified, very clear. But it's not our job to discover which ship leaked the oil. This is a job of the police or the Navy. We don't have competence to do that. Second, our role was to help to clean up the beaches. We use our own resource, people, technology, drones, sensors, ships, helicopters. We mobilized about 1,000 people, our centers of environmental protection, our centers of response to accidents. It's all, we are sure that we deliver what was expected from Petrobras. But I believe that by the end of the day, the Navy, in cooperation with the West Navy and the Coast Guard of the United States, will be able to identify the ship that leaked oil. It can take a long time, but technology will allow that. Remember that the Argentinian submarine, the Ara San Juan, it took 1 year, but it was found by the US Navy. And I believe that the same will happen.
Thank you very much for the talk. I'll borrow John's term and have another philosophical question. What is your vision for the oil and gas industry in let's say, medium to longer term? I mean, it's not just the renewables that are a challenge or electric cars, but it's also social preferences. And this is something that is a shift. There is demand for different kinds of energy, and that will impact the industry, corporates, and frankly also sovereigns that are not Brazil. I mean, it will make a dent in Brazil, but there are many countries that are really reliant on that.
I believe that there will be room for oil, still for oil and natural gas for a long time. Of course, oil price will be much lower than the past. This is one of the reasons why we should cut costs. We have to be prepared to survive in a low cost, low price, low oil price environment. That's our goal. I agree with you, it's a matter of preference of the society, but oil is needed. When we talk about electrification of cars, the most important source of growth of the car fleet are the SUVs, and they are not moved. There are no electric or hybrid electric SUVs. They will continue to be gas guzzlers for a long time. For the aircraft industry, the same. So there are petrochemicals. Oil is still oil and natural gas. Mainly natural gas is very important. There are many steps ahead. I'm not a fan of Malthusianism that things are going to change dramatically. There will be the peak demand in about 10 years, or as in the past, the idea of a peak oil. Technologies change things. Let's do our job and not preparing for the Armageddon.
I would like you to speak about pricing policy, gasoline, diesel. The last increase was only for gasoline and not for diesel. The implications of this for the private investors in Petrobras, for the shareholders, if this is going to create some sort of a price that you have to cross, help one the other. And the other question would be about the caminhoneiros. If there is any risk, how do you see the risk of the caminhões having another strike in Brazil due to diesel prices?
First of all, there is no pricing policy. People does not ask the CEO of Ambev, what's the pricing policy for beer? And for meat, what's the pricing? But there was a shock to meat price. Nobody talked about what's the pricing policy for meat. Prices are being managed according to demand and supply. About the truck drivers, the problem with truck drivers is not the cost of diesel, the price of diesel. I already said that we can charge them Venezuelan price, and it didn't solve the problem. The problem was created by the irresponsible policy of BNDES over several years, increasing dramatically the credit to acquire trucks at very low interest rates, subsidized interest rates as low as 2% per year. This created excess supply. And last year, the Temer government created the intervening in freight price, establishing minimum freight price by law. So it stimulated the agribusiness to integrate into the transportation business. Many large companies in the agricultural business acquired fleets of trucks, and this just worsened the situation of autonomous truck drivers. this is a problem of excess supply. It's not a problem of price.
I think we have accomplished, so thank you all for being here today. There's any more questions, but I think we're running out of time. Roberto, on behalf of the chamber, thank you so much for coming here.
You are very welcome.
Congratulations for your tremendous leadership, and we definitely wish you tremendous success in the next 2 years. Okay?
Thank you so much, and I thank you for all the help and this opportunity to share.